Hey, Dena here. I thought I would try something a little bit different. I've been kicking around the idea of doing cooking videos because I do a lot of cooking and it's never anything fancy, but I'm always trying to find ways to cook meals that don't take very long to make and aren't super expensive to make. So yeah, I just thought, I mean, if this catches on, I'll probably continue doing it. If not, whatever, I guess it'll just be a one-time thing. But today I will be making a frittata. If you don't know, a frittata is sort of like an omelet, a little bit like a quiche. It's basically a very basic, simple egg dish. Traditionally, it's cooked on the stove for the first part and then it's put in the oven. But I don't know if my skillet is oven safe. I don't think it is. But plus, you know, I like to keep, like I said, I'd like to keep things simple, so I'd rather. This one is done completely on the stove. So yeah, let's get started. So here's our ingredients. Eggs, obviously. I'm going to make enough. I'm going to make enough to make about 4 or 5 frittatas. I'll decide when I cut it up, but I'm basically going to use I'm going to use 8 eggs, mainly because these other 2 I'm going to need for making breakfast for the rest of the week. This is, I bought a bunch of asparagus last week and I roasted all of it, and then I put about half of it into the frittata I made last week and I froze the other half, so I'll be using that. I know it's not pretty, but you know, it's a vegetable. What do you expect? This is lunch meat. You don't have to use lunch meat, obviously. You can go for the better stuff. Like, I think I'm sort of loosely basing this off of an Alton Brown recipe, and I think he used like cubed ham that you buy at the store, but this is cheaper and it's not too bad as far as like, I mean, it doesn't have like a mile-long list of ingredients. The main ingredient is the meat, and there's just like salt, and it's cured in a few things. Whatever, it's not that bad, I don't think. You know, use what you want. Obviously, you don't have to use exactly what I'm using. Parmesan cheese, garlic powder and onion powder for flavoring. Obviously, you are more than welcome to use real onion or real garlic if you would prefer. I like to keep this simple, so I just use that, and of course salt and pepper. Now the first thing to do is to cook the vegetables. I'm going to cut these up a little bit smaller because they turned out to be kind of tough, and at this size, and they're still frozen, at this size they were kind of difficult to deal with, so I'm going to attempt to cut them up more while they're frozen. I'm hoping that'll be easier than letting them thaw first. So I'm going to do that really quick, and then I'll come back and show you what the next step is. Oh, also while I'm doing this, I'm going to preheat the stove, so the pan will be hot when I need it. Okay, I have cut up the asparagus and I'm about to cook it. Well, actually no, it's cooked already. I'm about to reheat it because it's frozen. I forgot to mention butter as one of the ingredients. I don't really, sorry, let me turn that light on. I like how it splats. I don't refrigerate my butter. I keep it on the counter, and I know that sounds like a bad idea, but honestly I've been doing it for a while now and I've never had a problem with it, so I figure I could use a little more. Now butter is my preferred oil to cook with. Not margarine, but actual butter. That's probably heated up enough. Yeah, I'm very unprofessional, okay? I'm not a professional chef, obviously. Ah! Wow. Okay, that was, in case I needed to prove I'm not a professional. Wow, that was awesome. Anyway, yeah. So, I am going to let this heat up. Actually, I think in the time I get all the ingredients ready, this should be heated up enough that it'll be good. Notice I cut this up a lot smaller. Actually, what I normally do is I just buy some raw broccoli at the store. I cut it up really small, and I'll put it in this pan and just kind of let it cook for like 10 minutes with the lid on, and it just cooks. And in the meantime, I get the other ingredients ready, which I'm going to do right now. So the next step, and I really could have done this earlier, maybe I should have, is cutting up the lunch meat, and I basically use, since I'm expecting to get 4 servings out of this, I'm using 4 slices of lunch meat, which is not a whole lot. That's the idea. I'm trying to keep this kind of low in calories, which is why I'm not using, it's kind of traditional. Another traditional thing with a frittata is to use a lot of cheese with it. I just use Parmesan cheese. I don't put like shredded cheese on the top or anything like that. And I'm taking this and just cutting it up. And I'm not too concerned about getting them all even or anything, because really this is already cooked. It just needs to be kind of heated. Yeah, maybe one more cut. Some of those pieces are going to be tiny, but whatever. Next step is to beat the eggs and add all of the ingredients. I know you're not supposed to crack the egg on the edge of the thing, but I don't really have a problem with getting eggshells in there. And when I'm cooking eggs, I don't. When I'm putting eggs in a frying pan, yes, I know I'm terrible at cracking eggs too. Trust me, like I said, I'm not a professional. See, I always either I don't hit it hard enough and I have a hell of a time getting the egg open, or I crack it too hard and it gets everywhere. But see, I know I'm not doing this the professional way, but you know, I am paying attention. I'm not getting any eggshells in there. I guess do it this way at your own risk, if you're worried about it. I started making this kind of frittata when I was working full-time. Technically I'm unemployed. I'm trying to make a full-time job out of making videos right now, but throwing these eggshells away. But this is something I used to do on Sunday afternoon, and the preparation doesn't take very long. It's one of those things where you can just get it ready and then just leave it to cook. And once it's done, it's done. Washing my hands a little bit. Like I've said, I'm terrible at cracking eggs, so I tend to get them all over my hands. Start with a fork, but I'm actually going to use my hand mixer for this, but I like to break the eggs first. And of course you could whisk these by hand. I'm kind of lazy. And they don't need to be perfect, but you generally want the yolks broken, and it's nice to get it a little bit, it's nice to get them a little bit fluffy. It's not a big deal, but in fact, I'm probably going to beat this just a little bit with the fork before, maybe I'll just beat it with the fork this time, because using the electric beater in here is kind of messy. Stick blender with a beater attachment. Okay, so now is where I'm going to add all the stuff to flavor it. I really just kind of eyeball this, but it's probably about, damn it, clumps up. And don't worry, my hands are clean, but ooh, that might be a little more, but usually I go for about a tablespoon, give or take, of Parmesan. And maybe half a tablespoon of each of the garlic and lemon powder. And probably about that amount of the salt and pepper too. The only downside to the pepper, it leaves these very unattractive black specks. And I'm considering buying white pepper just so it looks prettier. So the final product looks prettier. Just turn down the heat on the asparagus. It's starting to make kind of a sizzling sound. It's perfectly well cooked. I just wanted it reheated, really. This is probably good enough. Like I said, you guys, I am so not a perfectionist when it comes to this sort of thing. So I know it's not beautiful, but it's perfectly edible. So that's really the important thing. If I were making this for a guests or something, maybe I would try to make it prettier, but I mean, it's just for me, and it's just so I'll have lunch every day. And I don't have to make it from scratch. I can just reheat it. As I said, I started doing this when I had a full-time job on just something that's for me to do Sunday afternoon to prepare for the work week. And I would make enough to make 5 of these, and I would just have one for lunch every day. And I would just keep them keep each one in a, I'll get to that part later. But yeah, and I still do it even now that I'm unemployed, because it does save me a little bit of time that I could be spending working on videos. Okay, so I am ready to put all the ingredients together. Okay, I'm now putting all the ingredients together. That was unsafe what I just did. Don't do that. Don't reach your arm across the pan when you don't have, especially when you're wearing short sleeve. So this takes a little while, but I like to, but yeah, this is a little lengthy. It takes a little while. I don't know that I really need to separate these, but I just feel like I should. So I do. Honestly, this is probably the most time-consuming part of this, and I wouldn't have to do it if I bought decent meat instead of relying on lunch meat, but you know, I'm on a budget, so if you are on less of a budget than me, feel free to use better stuff. I have also used ground beef for this, and that's really good too. Sometimes if I have ground beef left over from when I make burgers. Speaking of which, I'll probably make a video about that too. That's another really simple thing. I make burgers for dinner a lot. Probably too often. Okay, that's good enough. Now I'm gonna save this paper plate and use it to put the frittata on once it's done cooking, because I feel like that helps it cool, and it especially, you know, keeps it from getting damp because of the condensation. I like to think that the paper kind of absorbs the moisture a little bit. And now, of course, you just slowly pour the eggs over. I always give it a little shake to kind of make sure they get into all the little crevices between the ingredients. I'm seeing big chunks of egg white. There's going to be big like chunks of white on the finished product, but whatever. It really doesn't have to be pretty. This is not a restaurant. Okay, so it's probably going to take longer than this, but I usually start, well, first of all, you want to cover it. I usually start, by the way, this is set to probably medium-low. Technically, I use medium-low for both parts, but for cooking the vegetables, I keep it on the higher end of medium-low, like 4, and now I've put it down to 2, because you do not want these eggs to cook too fast, because what you don't want is to have them get burned on the outsides or the bottom while they're still uncooked inside. So you want this on a fairly low setting. I don't set it all the way to low. I kind of put it on about number 2. And I'll set the timer for about 15 minutes. And just walk away from it. And, you know, don't give it too much time. You want to check on it. But, yeah, like I said, I start with 15 minutes. It usually needs a little more than that. So 15 minutes later, I'll come back and see how this is doing. So, okay. Next step, well, turn off the stove. And this is a bit of a pain, but basically I'm going to put this on this paper plate, hopefully. I don't know how well you can see this, sorry if it's off frame a little bit, but basically I'm lifting it out with the spatula while turning the frying pan over and kind of having gravity help it come out. And now you can see me cut it, or you can in a second. Okay, I'm about to cut this frittata, and let's see, do I want to make this into 4 or 5 pieces? Ow. I think I'll go with 4 because 8 eggs is not a whole lot. I just kind of want to check and make sure the egg is indeed cooked all the way through. It looks like it is. Basically, if you can like touch it and it springs back, it's done. I am not very good at cutting this, so cutting this evenly, I should say. So here's what I do. I go ahead and actually I leave that in, but what I do is, well, I'm not going to eat this right now. Usually I make this a little bit later in the day, right before lunch. I'm doing a little early today, but normally I will take one piece and put it on a plate, and the rest of these I'll kind of spread them out, and then a little later, hell, I'll just do it now. Basically what I do is I take 3 plastic containers and I put the rest of them in there. And I will leave them open on the counter. I don't have a problem with bugs or anything, so I will leave them out on the counter with the lids off. And I'll just let them cool, and like an hour from now or so I'll come back to it and I'll put all the lids on and I'll put them in the fridge, and that's my breakfast for a week. I said breakfast. That's my lunch for a week. So there you go. I didn't have quite enough eggs to make 5 of these, so it's not going to last me the entire week. One day I'll have to have something else for lunch, but you know, still this you know, makes it so once lunchtime comes, all I have to do is just take one of these and pop it in the microwave. I don't know if I need to, but I usually microwave it with the lid on, but kind of open a little on the end so that it doesn't dry out. I've never had a problem with it drying out. I don't know if that would actually happen, but it's just how I usually microwave things. So yeah, I could technically put the lids on and put them in the fridge right now, but there would be a lot of steam and they would end up getting very wet, which they're going to get kind of wet in the fridge anyway. There ends up being some condensation, but you know, whatever. And you can see I didn't beat the eggs perfectly. There's a lot of white spots, but you know, normally I would use my stick blender with the beater attachment, but this time I didn't. So so there you go. I mean, it's fairly easy. It takes a little while to cook, but the actual preparation doesn't take that long, especially if you do some of it ahead of time. And it's just, you know, mostly it's just getting it set up and just kind of leaving it to cook for 15 minutes. I mean, you can most likely make time. I don't know what your schedule is, but you can most likely make time in your day to do this. It's just take half an hour out of a Sunday or whatever, and just, you know, make yourself a frittata. It's pretty healthy. It's just, I mean, it's just eggs and some meat and just a little bit of, you know, Parmesan cheese for flavor, and you know, and it's another good way to, you know, sneak some more vegetables into your diet. If there are any cooked vegetables you like, obviously you can use whatever you want. It doesn't have to be asparagus. It's just what I had on hand. Like I said, I normally make broccoli to go on the bottom. And what else? Yeah, a lot of people, you know, frittatas, normally people will put cheese on the top, shredded cheese. I didn't do that because, like I said, I'm trying to keep the calories kind of low on these. So I think that's it. I hope you got something out of this. If people end up liking these, I'll do some more probably. Otherwise, it'll just be a one-time thing, whatever. Yeah, hope you like that. See you next time. See you in my next video, whatever that happens to be.